Hey sixth graders, this video is on multiplying decimals. Feel free to watch the whole thing. Feel free to watch part of it, pause, stop whenever you need it, and write down and take notes when you feel necessary as well. Here are the steps that I would like you to write down in your notebooks. So pause and write these steps down. So step number 1, the decimal points do not need to be lined up. So like the adding and subtracting, they do. Multiplying does not need to be lined up. Instead, you will line up the numbers on the right. Then we multiply like normal whole numbers. Ignore the decimal points for now. Count how many total place values each decimal is from the right. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then place the decimal in your product, which remember that's our answer of a multiplication problem. And we'll place the decimal that many places over. So let's do 2 examples together with me, and then you're going to do 2 examples on your own. So I will expect to see 4 multiplication problems in your notebooks with your notes. All right, so 2 and 34 hundredths times 1 and 23 hundredths. So we're just going to write it out. This one happens to have the exact same amount of digits, and they line up perfectly just like that. So the decimals happen to line up, but really I'm lining up my last, like my ones place, or no, not my ones place, my hundredths place of each number, because they both end in that, lining them up in the same column. So now we multiply like normal, which we're pros at, because we've been doing this now for a few weeks, and before that even. So 3 times 4 is 12, carry that 1. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1, so 10. And then 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1. I'm going to add a 0 for that 2. Even though it's in the tens place, I'm still adding a 0 now to cover the hundredths place. So 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 3 is 6, and then 2 times 2 is 4. Now we're going to do the 1, so I'm going to add 2 zeros to cover for the hundredths and the tenths. So 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 3, and then 1 times 2. Now we add. Notice I'm just forgetting my decimals for now. And then 7 times 6 is 13, or 7 plus 6 is 13, plus 4, so 17, and then 8 and 2. So we look at our numbers and we go up here and we count how many digits from the end or from the very right, how many digits to the left until we get to the decimal. And it's 2, or like 2 hops. And I start here and I go 1, 2, so 2 hops. I add these together and I get 2 plus 2 is 4. So that means I go down here on my very end and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. So my final answer, I'm going to put it up here because I ran out of room, 2.8782. So 2 and 8,782 thousandths. And let's look up here really quick. We have 2 and a little bit of something and 1 and a little bit of something. So if we round it to 2 and we round this to 1, 2 times 1 is 2, so my answer needs to be around 2. So if I put the decimal in the wrong spot and I get 28.782, I know that my decimal's in the wrong place and I did something wrong. So this is reasonable because it is close to 2. 45 and 35 hundredths times 5 and 6 tenths. So in my mind, I'm gonna, 45 and 35 hundredths is really close to 45, and 5 and 6 tenths is close to 6. But I'm just gonna go 50 times 5. So in my head, I know my answer is gonna be around 250. We rounded up a lot, so it's gonna be not very close to it, but closer to 250 instead of like 25 or 2,500 or something like that. So let's line it up. So we have, I'm going to start it over here so I have a little more room. 45 5.35 times 5 6/10. And I'm going to add a 0 here so I know that something needs to go there. 0 times everything is 0, so I'm going to go right to my 6. I still need to add a 0 to cover for that 100th spot. 6 times 5 is 30. Add that 3 up there, so 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21, and then 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 is 32. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27. Now I'm going to add 2 zeros to cover these 2 spots so that I can do my 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. I'm going to erase this stuff up here so it's not getting confusing. So 5 times 5 is 25, so a 2 needs to go there. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And then 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1, 26. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. Add these together. 0, 0, 6, 9, 6 plus 7 is 13, 2 plus 2 is 4, and 1 is 5, and 2. All right, so we're going to go back up. We're going to count. We went inside here 2, so 2 jumps, and then even though I added that 0, it's still 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4 again, so now we start back here and we go 1, 2, 3, 4. If we wouldn't have, well, we want to include that 0, but then, or that 2 up there, or the 2 jumps, but then we can see we're going to end up just taking those zeros back off anyways. But my answer then is 253 and 9,610 thousandths, which is the same as 253 and 96 hundredths. Okay, I would like you to pause me and do these 2 problems right now. This one and that one. Okay, we have 6 and 28 hundredths times 45 and 1/10. I'm going to add that 0. So add a 0 and then start multiplying by my 1. So 1 times 8, 1 times 2, 1 times 6. Add 2 zeros for my 5, so 5 times 8 is 40. And then 14. 5 times 6 is 31. And then add 3 zeros for that 4. 4 times 8 is 32. I'm going to cross those off. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. And then 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Hoping that I did not make a mistake in all of this. Okay, so I'm going to add these together. 0, 8, 2. 6 plus 4 is 10. Plus 2 is 12. And then 3, 8, 2. I'm going to go 2 in like that, and then 2. So 2 plus 2, 4 total. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is 283 and 228 thousandths. And then last one, 9 and 3/10 times 34 hundredths. Add that 0 up there, so now they all have the same amount of digits. So 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 3 is 12, 9 times 4 is 36, plus 1, 37. Add a 0 to cover that 4, and then 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 9 is 27. I don't need to do the 0 because that's just going to be 0 times for timesing everything. 0 plus 0 is 0. 2. 9 plus 7 is 16. Add that 1. 7 and 3 is 10. 1 is 11. So I have 31620. So we're going to go in 2, so 2 and 2 again is 4. And then I'm going to start here and go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I end up with 3 and 162 hundredths because I'm going to drop that 0. Now I want us to look at this really quick before you move on. 9.3 is really close to 9, and 0.34 is really close to 0, so that would give us 9 times 0 is 0. But if we round this up to 1, okay, 9 times 1 is 9. So we know that the answer is going to be between 0 and 9. So if we're multiplying by a number less than 1, so I want you to add this to your notes. Multiplying, I'm going to put it right in here. Multiplying by less than 1, so a decimal with like 0 point something, means that it is going to get smaller because you're taking a portion of that number and multiplying it times it. So we can see 9 and 3/10 times 34 hundredths ends up in 3 and 162 hundredths. 0.34 is about a third, and a third of 9 is 3, so that makes sense, which we'll be talking more about that stuff when we get to fractions. But just know that when you multiply by a decimal, if it's 1 and greater, it'll get greater, but if it's less than 1, it's going to get smaller.